Hello and welcome. My name is Kasozi. This time we're going to look at an exciter and what it can do for you on your stems and on your bass mix. An exciter can be explained in about 5 or 10 minutes. However, this video is a little bit longer because it's coming from real world classes. And if you're looking for a quick fix, this is not it, because we expand upon several things that are related to what an exciter does. Let's dive in. Hello, Kaz here, back in the box. This time we're going to look at two things. One is the exciter and the other is applying things like the exciter and any other dynamic effect, but applying it in parallel. Normally, if you're going to apply something in parallel, you would normally go here, click, and then find a bass and so on and so forth. I'm not going to do that. There's another way to do this that gives you a little bit more control where things are. So if I go to options and then say create new auxiliary channel. So this comes up. It's going to be Beatbox Shine, I'll call it. Once I have that there, I go up to, you see the input here. So where is this aux channel going to get its sound? It's going to get it from bass 12. Then when I go back to the beatbox, I'm sending to that input. So send bass, and I'm sending to bass 12, which is Beatbox Shine. So now it's sending a copy of it to bass 12, as you can see up here, which has become an input, if you see, for this aux channel. Now I did it this way, not because this is the best way to do it, but I've done it this way so that you can see how this particular DAW routes its sound from one place to another. Because when you go and just click and say, okay, yeah, sending to bass 14, then it creates for you the aux and everything. You don't know exactly what's going on in the background. And sometimes when you need to actually change and control things more specifically, you are unable to, especially in the routing of things, because you don't know how the program has done it. The more of these buses you keep creating, it will create auxes for you, and you may not actually want it to create them the way it does. And at the very least, you may want to reverse certain things, but not completely, and you don't know how to do it. It's good to actually understand how that routing is done in the background. If I do it that way, where I first created my aux channel, and on that aux channel, I decided what will be the input, which I decided, yes, that will be bass 12. Then I go back to what I want to send. What do I want to send to bass 12? And I was able to choose where I'm sending it, bass 12. It seems long-winded, but I hope you understand what I mean, that it's good to know what is going on in the background of your routing. Obviously, if you're using a different DAW, the process might be a little bit different. But for most DAWs, you have to first create where you're going to send these things. Yeah, it takes a few extra seconds to do this thing, so that can eat away at your time if you have to do this many times. However, it's good to understand what's going on. Okay, we're going to send a copy of this to this. And what we're going to apply here is an exciter. Normally, I would expect actually to find the exciter inside the dynamics folder or menu. I feel it's a dynamic effect of sorts, but I guess maybe it isn't, because not quite. We find it here in specialized exciter. And here it is. I'm going to enlarge it a bit so that we see what we're dealing with. What does an exciter really do? It creates new textures within the sound that you're making, and it can make the character of the sound of your signal more interesting, or worse, depending on what settings you've made. It's a useful way to make a sound that maybe is dull or not as exciting and give it a little bit more richness in terms of texture. Its timbre will change. And the way it does this is by adding what they've called harmonics here. And there's a dial where it's just a percentage and you can increase the harmonics. But let's look at them in the real sense of what is going on, that these are overtones. So whatever sound is coming in at any given moment, that's the fundamental sound. If you did the class with me where I talked about the overtone series, then you will remember that for every fundamental sound that comes out, or fundamental frequency in this case, because we are dealing with sound engineering, there are many other frequency levels which are overtones, which are above. They're incorporated within this fundamental, and they're above, going higher and higher in frequency range. Basically, what an exciter is doing is bringing out these overtones to be more audible on top. It's taking what is there and then calculating what kind of harmonics or overtones that could make this sound richer. But they're sounds which are actually based on what is there. And you can increase the amount of them up and up with this. And they give you also two controls of color. Perhaps one way to look at it would be, this will be how many overtones are being presented. The color will be which overtones are being presented. And so you get a different timbre or a different texture of sounds coming through, or the texture of your sound changes. This can be done through all the frequencies, but this, with an exciter, it actually is good more in the above frequencies to just give you that shine, give you that air to kind of like improve the flavor and excitement within a particular sound. In this case, we're going to deal with this beatbox sound. Okay, so let's have a look at it and see what it can do for us. Let's go back and look at the aux channel here. It's going to receive sound that's coming from the beatbox track being sent via bus 12 as an input here onto the beatbox shine aux. So if I pull this up, it doesn't mean that we'll hear anything. We won't hear anything unless we send it. But now you might recall that when this volume knob is this side, the send volume, it means that this thing is acting post as opposed to pre. You see, we have pre-fader and then we have post-fader. So it's post, but we want it to be sent before it goes down to the pan, so that the volume here does not affect the volume here. We literally want a copy of this thing that going there. It's as if we have done a split at this point. So it's coming, the signal is coming, and then we take a copy of it to go the other side, but it's an independent copy according to whatever volume we've set here. It's an independent copy. It's not reliant on whether this is down or up or whatever. So that means we gotta put it in pre-fader mode. I might decide to do something to this, and then when I do this, then it affects what I've done here, because if I take this volume down, that means whatever is feeding into the exciter is actually less, and then that will affect how the exciter is operating, because the volume that is coming into it has changed. This might be something that you want, but I don't. Why? Because I want the exciter to act exactly the same and give me the same exact shine on this element, whether the volume is low or loud. I want it to be giving me the same kind of results, the same kind of overtones or harmonics as they've called them here. So whatever it's applying and adding to the character of my sound, I want that to be the same character even at low volumes as it is at loud volumes. And I don't want that to be affected if this volume goes down or up or whatever. That's why the copy that I send here needs to be pre as opposed to post. So, and that needs to be made clear. So that means even if I take this volume down, I'm still going to get sound the other side. Which means now I can work on this sound and get it to where I want. It can be ridiculous or whatever, because I still have the original somewhere. So I'll be able to blend them together afterwards. So here we go. Alright. First of all, I've sent too much to it, so let's take that down a bit. Alright. In the morning, break of dawn, let me try the other color. In the light, and when the sunshine comes up. Now, what I don't want it to do is actually to add me these things in the lower parts of the frequencies. So above 5K is where I want this exciter to give me something. Alright. In the morning, break of dawn, I wanna bask in the light, and when the sunshine comes up, I wanna break. And I've really pushed it there. But what I'm gonna do to it, prior to it, I want to remove the actual, the kick sound of it. I'm going to go in and apply a single band EQ, one of these bad boys. Simple but very effective. So a low cut. So I'm going to cut out below, say, and I just have that. All right. Maybe it's too extreme. In the morning, break of dawn, I wanna bask in the light, and when it's like I've got a little bit of a hi-hat there. Yeah, I don't want this thing to be too steep. Yeah. And I'll even change the slope to maybe 18 dB. That's nice. All right. Okay. So the idea is to blend these two tracks. Yeah. So that I get a nice level. But first, you see this one is still going to stereo out. But all the other music, never mind the voice at the beginning, the teaching voice, but the voice in the music, the beatbox and the EP are going to bass 11, which is the music. So these two should go to bass 11. I'm going to go in there, and instead of stereo output, I'll put it to go to bass 11. So that now everything is going in the same place. And then now I'm going to start to balance these two to make them sit in. And in order for me to concentrate on them better, I'm going to mute the voice for now. You can see when I mute it, the drums are not as alive. Yeah, the exciter has given us new textures above this range here that are giving it a little bit of a sizzle in those above ranges. The question you might have, as many do sometimes, is like, look, haven't you just like added some high frequencies? Why couldn't you just maybe right here on the track, why couldn't you just go add an EQ and then just add a shelf to the thing? And yeah, you could do that. But now what the EQ is doing is just boosting frequencies that are already present within the signal. They're already present in what you recorded. The difference here, when we go and use the exciter, is actually adding new information, like new textures that were not actually present within what you recorded. It can have a little bit extra taste to it. The whole point is that maybe the sound is dull and uninteresting, and you're trying to give it new character. Like you're trying to add to its character or enhance its character by addition of other overtones, not just enhancing those that are present. That's why we would want an exciter as opposed to just adding a shelf or boosting a shelf EQ in the high frequencies. And the other question some people have asked before is, why don't you just apply the exciter direct on the track? Because that will do the trick. But then again, this is the thing. I want to really control those textures that I've applied. I want to have more control of it so that I know how much to blend into it. As opposed to when you apply directly here, you kind of have less latitude. You can still do it. Yes, it works. But I have less latitude, especially when I want to make changes. It becomes a bit harder to actually make those changes with precision. But here, I maintain the integrity of my original sound. It's all there because it's not that I don't want it. I want to add textures to it. So I want it as is, and then I add new textures to it, as opposed to bringing this exciter on top of here, whereby now I'm changing the whole thing of what I had, which means I may now be playing around with some of the other things that I already have that I want and like. Extending this along, since I've done like the high frequencies, what I could do is like do something to the bass. So I can go and add another bass again. Last time we went and created an aux and blah, blah, blah. This time I'm just going to go boom, past 13, boom. And Logic does it for me. And it's right there. It creates an aux. But it's good to know both ways. So I'm going to say beatbox bass or beatbox. Vase. Why am I always misspelling things here? Okay. Beatbox bass. Remember, we want this to be pre-fader. So it's not like when we're doing the reverbs and stuff, that those ones, we want it to be post-fader. So this time, it's a totally different thing. We're doing some parallel processing. So I want it to be pre-fader so that the volumes of the actual track don't affect what you're doing this side. Okay, so I've sent already a copy there, and I'm going to go in here, and I want to like fatten this thing up. There are different ways I could do it with EQ and stuff like that, but that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to call up, again, a single band EQ here, and just cut out all the high frequencies. And I'm going to go as low as, I don't know if I should put this in the center so you see clearly. So I'm going to cut out all the frequencies that are above maybe 500 or maybe 800. It's a human voice, so it's not going to be that bassy. So anything above 700 is going to be cut out. So if I take the volume down of the original, then we'll have this. So I can still cut out a few more. So that I'm practically just dealing with a kick of sorts. Yeah. With this chosen, that means I can do certain processing on this to just bring out that sound more. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the amp designer here and call up a bass amp. Yeah. I'm going to be able to drive that sound a little bit, and I can do it harder than I would if I was only applying it to a whole thing, because now I know it's just operating on the lower frequencies. I can do crazy things with it, creative things with it, and get something cool. Let's get crazy. Try to get a compressor involved. And on this graphic EQ, remove all this affair still. Yeah, it doesn't sound that great, but let's fatten it out a little bit more. So I'm going to go to the compressor to give it like a constance, so that we don't get like too many which are hitting too hard and others are quiet and so on. And I'm going to be really, really heavy with this. So I want to go for an FET compressor. These are a little bit more immediate. They press a little bit harder and faster. I'm going to push the ratio to around 8, really low of compression. Not a very quick attack, but quick enough, 10 milliseconds. You see, if I do that, I'm even getting more rhythms going on. Even sounds that were happening in my throat as I did the beatbox, they're actually being accentuated. So you're getting like a double rhythm, yet there is no like a delay or anything like that, as you can see. So it's like tun tiguda, tun tiguda, as opposed to the tun tun ka. Yeah, I can even go crazier with this because like it's something that is happening on a parallel track. Oh, I'm even highlighting the wrong track, so you can't see exactly what I'm talking about. So they're highlighting the right track. So I can even go crazier with this just like we added new sounds using the exciter. So on this one, we're going to use the compressor to add new flavors to it. Because when you start to distort sound, it starts to saturate. You're kind of like going into new harmonics, like you're starting to bring out and also to add new textures that perhaps weren't really there, because now you're overdriving the thing, or you're overcooking and over pushing the thing. It starts to now have new colors. In different plugins and in different programs, the plugin might react a little bit differently because they're different programmers, they're different manufacturers. So with different sensibilities, different creative ideas and so on. But when I'm working in Studio One, which is actually my preferred DAW, I usually push things like this harder. And when I'm in Logic here, the soft one works better for me. You would think when you see the word soft, that then you would get like simpler things, and then when it's harder, then you get more complex things. But to me, it sounds more complex when it's on the soft setting. You see that? So it's actually chilled out. But if I go back to this one, okay, so I'm gonna take that. It's clipping and everything, but we're gonna sort that. So now the idea is that this also should go out to music. Then you balance those three out. Yeah, so that's one way you could do it. Just going back to, again, understanding a bit of our routing idea that, well, we have routed them to go to the music bus. So now the idea is to balance these three, balance them and make them work well together. So that's the original. I'm bringing a bit of this heavier one. And then the stuff on top. Yeah, I think I could have done a little bit better with a beatbox bass to make it sound a little bit, not necessarily fatter, but clearer. It's like you can have a harsh sound, but when it has a certain sense of clarity. However, knowing that I have this side for clarity, then there's not that much need to do the same thing this side. So wherever I'm hearing like there's lack of clarity, then I balance that out by raising the shine. So I think you'll agree, if I mute these two, you'll hear a difference. So I'm going to play when they're on, then I mute and then back on. So you can hear that difference that it's applying. Right now, we're at a risk of being able to ruin our gain structure because this beatbox thing is starting to sound maybe too loud. Every time we need to make a change, you have to go and kind of like nip all those volumes. So one way to control those kinds of things is to select all those. I can send these all to a new bus, yeah, whereby they will be grouped together. Say output to a new bus. Like bus 14, beatbox, all. And now that one I can send to music, to bus 11. If I need to turn the drums down, then I've got that control there. But not only that, I can now process this whole thing together. Say if I was to decide to put like a multi-band compressor or something like that, to do something to it. And I'm not really going to play around with this right now. That's a whole other lesson, and you look that up. There'll be a video about this. I'm just going to put this preset. It's extremely extreme. It's going to bring out certain things out in the groove that are not that audible. Okay, it's too extreme right now. So I'll control this output to make sure I maintain a reasonable gain structure. Remember, with your plugins, as you're applying them, you have to be wary of your gain structure because you have to have a little bit of headroom. So if there's no headroom, you can't actually take these up and down. You can't work. If there's no headroom on the master output, same thing, you can't work. To control that, on the plugins themselves, when things are getting a little bit too loud, then you should actually be controlling your gain. So I'm taking this down. So you can see now, if I turn this up, I'm getting more of that rhythmic thing. Yeah, okay, you could say that that is working. There's a better way to actually control these things, or another way to control this, the volumes of those 3 tracks. So if I select them again, if I right click on any once they're selected and say create new VCA. Once I've created this VCA, I want to use it as just a volume control to control the volume of these beatbox tracks. Right now, the option to send to the VCAs is missing, and the way to get that is right click, go to channel strip components, and then find it and add it. So whatever you need, you add it this way. Any component, all these can be removed or put back. Like for example, right now I'm not doing any automation. It could be like something that's taking up space. I don't know how to look at that. So I go and take it off. Yeah, then it's not there. Whatever I don't want here, I can remove that way. So in this case, these are already set to be controlled by VCA1. And so if I play, simple as that. It's just a volume control. You don't see them moving, but it's happening. So the volume control is there. And also bear in mind that different DAWs will do this differently. So some of them, you can actually see the faders go down. But even though you're not seeing them do that here, it's actually happening in the background. So I can take that volume down. I find VCAs useful once the tracks are getting so huge, or if you're dealing with orchestral stuff where you have like so many instruments that you're dealing with. In a small thing like this, even simpler songs of 16 tracks, even 24, sometimes it's not that necessary, or I might use it just on drums or something like that. But already you might be controlling these things fairly well with a group channel. So if they're already grouped somewhere, and you can take that thing down and control them. But in some cases, a VCA is good. And in this context, you could see that the VCA actually helps a bit so that you don't get too much stuff feeding into the group track. Once I put this bad boy here, the volumes went crazy. Then it's kind of better to sometimes actually apply a VCA to control those things. So this video had several techniques. The 2 main points was to introduce an exciter to you and also to show you some routing examples when you're going to do parallel processing. And that could be parallel compression, which we did in a way. Different effects that can add character to a sound using an exciter, which can bring out different overtones. And then also seeing how you can kind of split a sound up and be able to deal with the high frequencies separately, as we did on this aux here, and then deal also with the low frequencies on a separate one, but yet the original sound is still intact somewhere else. There were various little things happening in this particular thing. If you have any questions, we can discuss them in the next class. Or perhaps you've done these things and you have another way of doing it. Maybe we can share and discuss those kinds of things. All right. Oh, You get the idea. I'm not digging what this one did. Let me try something different in its place. In multi-FX here, there's a fat FX. It's a cool thing that could make things a bit more fun. Yeah. And just by moving this a bit, just by moving that, I can get like some interesting sounds. Let's add a little bit of distortion to that. I like what it's doing, but I don't like that frequency that is not going. Are you going? Yeah. I'm just gonna look for that frequency and pull it out. So. This section was interrupted by a network glitch, so the video got corrupted. Anyway, what was done, I cut 124 Hz. If now I create a new aux here, give it a little bit of reverb. New auxiliary strip. And where is it gonna get its input? In bus 1. Gonna put a reverb on it. Go to chroma verb, it's quite cool. I have some presets I made already. Dick Shepherd School. This is a reverb I made to imitate like a school where I was secondary. It had a particular sound in the whole. If you want to know more about shaping your reverbs, look up the creating your own reverb textures and designing your own reverb rooms, if you like. So anyway, gotta make sure for a start that this is wet 100%. We're going to send it to that bus 1. It's this track here. Sending it to bus 1, and we make sure it's a post fader. And remember, just up here we can use a sends on fader so that we can see clearly what we're sending. So we're sending to bus 1, which is sending to aux 5. I should have named it here reverb, so it's easier for us to understand what's going on with that. So reverb. So that means when we click here and we're selecting the one that we sent to bus 1, which is reverb. And now we have our fader control that can send to that reverb. Alright. In the morning, break of dawn. But of course, the reverbs right now are just sending to stereo out. That's not what I want. I want it to first send to the group. So that is all together part of the music. So we send it to bus 11. Now it first goes to bus 11 and then sent on together with everything else to the stereo out. So I can have a little bit more control of its volume. And I can turn it down itself like that so that I have more control of this. You need more control of this than this, because this you can set and put it in one place, and then you come back and have enough headroom to actually juggle this. Alright. In the morning, break of dawn, I wanna bask in the light. And when the sunshine comes up, I wanna break. Yeah, kind of interesting. So I can go ahead. Alright. In the morning, break of dawn, I wanna bask in the light. And when the sunshine comes up, I wanna break into song. Ooh, it's a new day. Ooh, it's a new day. Alright. Oh, audio. Whoa, yeah. Yeah, alright. In the morning, break of dawn, I wanna bask in the light. And when the sunshine comes up, I wanna break into song. I wanna bask in the light. And when the sunshine comes up, I wanna break into song. And I get alright. Audio. So I've gone ahead and even put some added a delay here just for the voice, and so this is what we've got now. And I get alright. In the morning, break of dawn, I wanna bask in the light. And when the sunshine comes up, I wanna break into song. Ooh, it's a new day. Ooh, it's a new day. And I get alright. Audio. Whoa, yeah, something like that. And just in case you're curious, on the output, we're actually not clipping. We're at the top of what we can get, because I'd put a limiter just so that I don't get things loud, too loud for you. And the limiter is only allowing up to -1 dB. So it can't actually clip. So I'm not saying this is how you should mix. But if you're doing things like this, like a podcast or something like that, you're doing your lessons, because some of you are doing lessons, I understand, you should make sure that your output doesn't go over a certain amount. In fact, you can do much more processing here. I'm just doing the bare minimum of at least making sure that the level is not going past a certain point whereby it will clip, but at the same time, it also pulls up whatever else is below. So if I have a limiter on, this also helps. So these are just like side things here, but you get the idea. Alrighty then. Take care now.